Probably is.
Did you dream about it? I thought you were done with them.
Yeah.
I wondered if... Sorry? Where's my steak? Where's my steak? I've been demoted. What did I say? Oh, I screwed up. You'll make that change, right? I will. It's my fault. I'm sorry. I hope that I will this my plan was revised to the 120 packet. So when the board is approving it, they could approve, note that the revised.
Okay, so when I read it, I say it's on the revised.
March 9th, 2009 revised, yeah. Okay. And they had to be laid on the table, so. Why? I know.
Well, I always go through my packet. I may have
So I don't.
Hi. How are you, Anastasia?
How are you?
Well, great. I ran down him and you have an extra one?
Yeah, I gave one.
I'm always like that. I think I have borrowed one before. Oh, that was great.
I gave mine. I need to restock.
Water? I take one. There's something else. Oh, right. No, he didn't. I waved my hat at that. I missed last year. Is there a logic to this?
No.
On and we're doing that for probation. Kind of like Facebook. Right. Well. Okay, and then how we get on? Yeah. Log your phone number. Okay. In where? There. Okay, last four. Here we go. I'm not ready for that 21st century. That's over here.
No.
Good evening. This is the Wednesday, April 1st, 2009 Platting Board, Municipal Platting Board meeting. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Taylor?
Here.
Clark?
Here.
Roll?
Here.
Solteke?
Here.
McKay?
Here.
Moses? Plunkett? Story? Traeger?
Here.
Next item on the agenda is approval of action summaries. We have summaries for Monday, March 2nd, 2009, Wednesday, March 4th, 2009, and there needs to be a correction in the chair, vice chair designation on that one. Monday, March 9th, we were handed revised summary for that one, and Monday, March 16th, 2009. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Clark? Is there a second? Ms. Taylor? Are there any objections? Seeing none, the action summaries are approved. And next is the approval of minutes. We have minutes for Wednesday, February 4th, 2009, and Wednesday, March 4th, 2009. Can I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Clark? Thank you. Seconded by Ms. Taylor. Is there any objection?
Madam Chair, I have to abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. 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 And other than that, or is there an objection? If not, the minutes are approved, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of all matters before the board that do not require a public hearing. All items shall be approved by a motion without debate. Does any board member wish to remove the item from the consent agenda? If not, then may I have a positive motion for approval of the consent agenda? Mr. Roll. And a second? Mr. Clark, thank you. Is there any objection to approval of the consent agenda? If not, the consent agenda is approved. No old business? Okay, special order of business. Are there any disclosures? Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. Under case number S11497-3, Purcell Subdivision, I need to disclose that in my prior employment with Municipality of Anchorage as a project management engineer, I would have provided staff support on this case. It was technical support. I have no interest in this case, personal, financial, or otherwise, and I do not have any problem judging the case on the information presented tonight.
Can I have a positive motion for Ms. Taylor's participation? Mr. Clark, the second. Mr. Krieger, Mr. Clark, will you speak to your motion?
From what we've heard, there's no reason to disqualify Ms. Taylor from this discussion.
Is there objection? Seeing none, Ms. Taylor, you are directed to participate. Okay, that was... Which brings us to the new business. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Okay. New business portion of the agenda, public hearings. And during the public hearing, we follow the procedure as outlined on the front of the agenda. After the case is introduced, there will be a staff presentation. After the staff presentation, the chair may the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue, and persons who wish to testify follow the time limits established by the rules of procedure. Petitioners get 10 minutes, and they may reserve time for rebuttal out of that 10 minutes. Representative of groups get 5 minutes, and individuals get 3 minutes. We keep time by the little mechanism up here in the front. When the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board, and you may only testify once on any issue. Any individual has appeal rights relating to any action the board takes, and appeal of the decision or any conditions of approval follow the procedure that's outlined on the front of the agenda. That being said, the first case is case S11724-1, Rolling Hills Estates subdivision. May we have the staff presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to amend Note 2 on Plat 7431 for Lot 1B, Block E, Rolling Hills subdivision by deleting the first sentence of the note that reads, "Development of Lot 2A shall not occur until public water and sewer area are available." And there is an error on the first sentence. It should be Lot 2A, not 1B. Lot 2A contains 16,700 plus square feet. It currently is not developed. The subdivision is located east of Sand Lake Road and south of Wandering Drive. The property is zoned R1. This lot and the lot to the east are both owned by the petitioner. The note that's the subject of this request was added by the Health Department in 1974 to the plat because soils information was not submitted with the plat application, and which was recorded in 1974. AWW confirms that sewer and water mains are not available to the subject parcel. Flat Top Technical Services did perform soils log perk test site plan design drawings and specifications, and that is the main issue with removal of this plat note. The on-site water and wastewater services in the municipality has reviewed the application for an on-site wastewater disposal system as well as the well and a replacement system, and stated they have no objection, as the engineer hired by the petitioner has shown through the design plans and soil testing that adequate space is provided to construct both the original and replacement wastewater disposal system and construct a private water well in accordance with AMC 1565 and 1555. The Platting Board did review a similar request for 2 lots to the west of the current petition site. At that time, on-site services had no objection to that removal of the amendment of the plat note for Lot 1B, and there is currently a 4-bedroom single-family dwelling that was constructed on that lot following the board's approval of amending the plat note. It should be noted that the lot size was created in 1974, which was prior to the 1986 adoption of an amendment to Title 15 that requires the 40,000 square foot minimum lot size for an on-site septic system. So based on the recommendation from on-site services, the department does recommend approval of an amendment to the Note 2 on Plat 7431 to eliminate the requirement for public sewer prior to development for Lot 2A, Block E, Rolling Hills subdivision, subject to recording a resolution at the District Recorder's Office. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing, and we'll hear from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative. Please come forward and state your name and spell it for the record, please.
My name is Pete Diemer, D-I-E-M-E-R, and I am the petitioner in this case. I'll be very brief. Just 2 clarifications. I do not own both lots, the adjacent Lot 3A. I only own Lot 2A. I purchased that lot from my father, who was the petitioner in 1973, to adjust the boundary between the two, which is probably how that confusion arose. Second, I just want to clarify that this petition is to remove the entire Note 2 on Plat 7431, which also includes restriction for public water. I note that the staff report was thorough on all accounts, but that the restriction relating to development based on public water and sewer, they just referred to public sewer. So the petition is to remove the entire note 2 on Plat 7431, which is based on the engineering submitted to on-site. At that point, I'd turn it over to questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Dimer? Thank you.
All right, I'd like
You
to reserve
have
the remainder of my time. Thank you.
8 minutes and 47 seconds for rebuttal. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in case S11724-1 Rolling Hills Estates? Anyone at all? Seeing none, is there anything further you'd like to say, Mr. Damer?
No, ma'am.
Okay, the matter rests with the board. If we can have a positive motion. Mr. Krieger.
Madam Chair, in the matter of S11724-1, I move to approve the request to amend Note 2 on Plat 7431 to remove that note. The note to be removed says development of Lot 2A shall not occur until public water and sewer area are available.
Mr. Roll seconds. Mr. Krieger, would you speak to your motion?
It looks as though the engineering has been done to take a look at what might happen to that area if a private water well and sewer is installed, and that there doesn't appear to be any deleterious effect from doing that, and there appears to be no objection from anybody.
Mr. Krieger, it's been pointed out that you've missed saying subject to recording of a resolution with in your motion.
Oh, well, let me add that then. Subject to recording a resolution with the district recorder's office. Can we add that to the motion?
And Mr. Roll, is that okay for the second?
Well, I still support it, even with that added to it.
Is there any objection? Everybody supports it. Seeing none, the motion passes and the plat note is removed. Next case is case S11727-1, Keno Hills Edition Number 9. Can we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to subdivide one tract into 2 lots with 2 variances. The petitioner requests a variance from dedication of streets and design standards for lot frontage, which require the subdivider to dedicate right-of-way to the public and that all lots should have frontage to a publicly dedicated street. The petitioner also requests variances from design, there were 3 variances. The third one is for design standards for lot dimensions, which require the length of a flagpole portion of a flag lot to be no longer than 200 feet in the suburban and rural areas. The length of the proposed flagpole is 368 feet. The standard is not met for the variances from right-of-way dedication. The variance is met for the flag lot. There are no special circumstances affecting the property which would make the dedication of right-of-way to Equus Circle impractical, unreasonable, or undesirable to the public. Proposed tract A-1A is likely to be subdivided further in the future. The proposed lots to the north and the existing tracts to the east obtain legal and physical access from Equus Circle. The petitioner should be required to dedicate and construct Equus Circle. None of the municipal agencies support this variance request from the dedication of Equus Circle as right-of-way. There are special circumstances affecting proposed Lot 12, which make the proposed flag lot necessary. Equus Circle is the safest and most practical access to Lot 12 because the subject property is affected by very steep topography. The proposed flag lot makes the preferred access via Equus Circle possible. Furthermore, the flagpole portion of the flag lot will be a private driveway, and the municipality has no interest in maintaining private driveways that serve only one residential lot. In sum, the department recommends denial of the variances from dedication of streets and lot frontage and access, and approval of the variance for the length of a flag lot. The department also recommends approval of the plat, subject to conditions 1 through 12 on pages 8 and 9 of the packet. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of staff? Ms. Taylor.
Through the chair, in reading through the findings, I see that project management and engineering has a comment that street lighting may be required. Is there any street lighting in the adjacent neighborhoods?
To my recollection, there's no street lighting in that section of Golden View Drive. In rural development areas, street lighting is not required. Project management engineering indicated that this might be a problem intersection, and that they just wanted to follow up with traffic and find out if this was needed.
Any other questions of staff? I'm on the queue. Ms. Stolpe.
Thank you. I was curious about the stream right at the entrance onto Equus Circle. And I didn't find that addressed anywhere in the reading, and I don't know, I may have missed it, but I'm wondering how that is addressed. And I guess I was also thinking if the road couldn't be made at a kind of clipped off that corner so you didn't have to go across that stream at all. I mean, I just, looking at the map, I'm curious about that.
Through the chair, thank you, Ms. Stolpe. On page 10 of the packet, you can see a shrunk-down little version of this plat. And you can see that there's a line, sort of a squiggly line, crossing through the middle of track A-1A. That's the drainage way. And there's a condition in here that there should be a 25-foot, that the petitioner needs to follow up with Watershed Management Services to see if there's a need for a 25-foot stream setback easement either side of that drainage way. There's already a permitted crossing of this stream where Equus Circle crosses the Golden View Drive. Project Management Engineering, Watershed Management Services, the other agencies that look at streams have reviewed this. There's an existing driveway that crosses this stream. There's a culvert there. With the dedication of this street, this will also dedicate a 25-foot stream setback either side. But this crossing, the municipal agencies don't have a problem with this crossing. And this is the most logical place for it, and it already exists.
Mr. Krieger.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. McLaughlin, would the denial of the variance request with respect to frontage on the public street squash this development?
No, it would not. The planning department and other agencies had several meetings with the applicant, and we worked with them to come to resolution on this. The opposition to dedicating Equus Circle is based on finances, which is not one of the criteria for a variance. And originally, the planning department wanted Equus Circle dedicated all the way to the cul-de-sac and then going, I guess it's north, where that flag lot was. but we worked with the petitioner to revise that and come up with the least possible amount of dedicated right-of-way that they would be responsible for. This is this represents the minimum that project management engineering and the traffic department would be comfortable with in terms of minimum required dedication of right-of-way. This will just be 24-foot gravel standard. Most of it's already there. The cul-de-sac will be a residential cul-de-sac. This will be an unpaved section of road. It shouldn't be a deal breaker. The petitioner was aware of this and, to our understanding, comfortable with it before they submitted the plat. I think that they were just trying to hold out hope that maybe they could get one more thing, even though they knew that the municipal agencies wouldn't support it.
So, follow up, please. So, if I'm hearing you right, the question is whether Equus Circle is going to be private or public?
Well, we generally don't support private roads.
But isn't that the question? Because if the petitioner, if the right-of-way is vacated, then it becomes a private driveway sort of thing, right?
Well, currently there's just a driveway there, and our agencies have asked for this to become dedicated right-of-way. They have presented it here as just a sort of a private road. If that were to be the case, then it would need to be a tracked out private road. But in any case, we don't want to create a track just for a private road. That is an option, but we prefer to see this dedicated right-of-way. Track A-1A is likely to be subdivided further. You can see all those other tracks to the south that will gain access from Equus Circle. There's several lots and tracks that could potentially or will use this road. It should, the feeling of these other agencies is that it should be right of way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krieger. Mr. Clark?
Through the chair, this information that we received today, the additional public comments, seem to come from those other tracks in indicating that they would prefer not to have a dedicated road. I guess I can understand their feelings. Is there any overwhelming reason why adding additional road surface that has to be taken care of on the public dime, of course, is questionable sometimes, but is there any overwhelming requirement, such as fire department or something like that, that would require this to be a dedicated road?
Yes, the fire department, that would be quite a long private road or driveway. It'll be maintained not by the municipality but by a rural road service area. And I think the feeling of the people in the neighborhood is generally that they would like to see things as the way they are now, and like for this to be as crummy a road as possible. But from the public agency standpoint, it should be improved to the minimum standards for a 24-foot gravel road. And it needs to be improved to that 24-foot gravel road to be able to withstand the weight of emergency services vehicles.
I guess the follow-up through the chair. Am I misreading this? Was that 20 foot or 60 feet?
The dedication is for 60 foot of right-of-way, but what they'll actually be required to construct, and like I said, is mostly already there. It's 24-foot gravel.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? If not, we'll open the public hearing, and would the petitioner or the petitioner's representative please come forward and state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Madam Chairman, board members, my name is Kenneth Lang. I'm here this evening in behalf of the estate of Ruth Moen. With me this evening is Janie Moen, Ruth's daughter. This property is one of the few remaining homesteads in the Anchorage Bowl, and I'd like to begin by giving you a brief history of the tract. Howard and Ruth Moen homesteaded the area in the early 1960s and the patent for 150 acres was issued in 1966. During the 70s, they subdivided the area known as Keno Hills. Howard passed away in 1988, and Ruth joined him in 2006. In 1998, the state DNR accepted the 10 acres at the southwest corner of the property and named it Mullen Park. The most recently recorded plat was a 5-acre parcel, Tract C, recorded in 2005, and the proceeds from the sale were used to pay Ruth's medical bills. In her will, Ruth specified that her land be split between her 3 children, with 5-acre parcels to be given to 2 of her children and the remainder to go to Janie. Thus, we're before you this evening to carry out her final wishes. Prior to our submittal, as Mr. McLaughlin mentioned, there were several meetings with the municipal staff to resolve the location for the 2 new lots, and our submittal reflects the results of those meetings. Our intent was to minimize the disturbance in the area, and as you've been told, there's an existing driveway where we've located Equus Circle, and it now serves a single-family home on Tract B. It could also serve Tract C when it is developed. The homestead residence itself has access from Golden View Drive, and because of the location of the existing home, only one additional lot could be developed, which would front on Equus Circle. And as a result, Equus Circle could be the access for a total of 5 home sites. Regarding the variances we've requested, you should note that all of the reporting agencies, including the Rabbit Creek Community Council, had no objection to our request for a private roadway, except for project management and engineering. Given the present state of the economy, we cannot understand why there would be any objection to the creation of a road which the municipality or the limited road service area would not have to maintain. Regarding the variance for the flagpole length, here I am again with another one, and once again I must tell you that Title 21 needs to be revised to make conforming flagpole lots more in keeping with the size of the lot being created. And once again, the staff supports our variance request. You've talked about the late comments that have been submitted by the neighbors, which are in support of our petition. I also have a letter from Janie's brother who lives out of state, and he was supporting it as well. I have some comments on the department recommendations, but I'd like to save them for the rebuttal time. If you have any questions for me or Janie, we'll be happy to answer them. And I'd like to reserve the remainder of my time for rebuttal.
You have about 6 minutes for rebuttal. Are there any questions of Mr. Lang? Seeing none.
Here's a question here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Mr. Krieger?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Lang, how do you calculate that there will only be 5 home sites on these properties?
There were 2 existing with tracts B and C. We're creating 2 tonight, and only 1 other could be developed because of the location of the homestead. And additionally, there's wetlands to the west, to the north of where that drainage way is shown.
Through the chair?
Mr. Krieger?
Mr. Lang, I'm trying to connect the dots or do the math here. Are you saying that the properties to the east, Tract B and Tract C, can only have one, could not be further subdivided and have additional home sites put on them? Is that what I'm getting from this? It was
Okay. Initially, to clear up
I'm sorry.
some confusion, the drawing is drawn sideways.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm with you now. But
Track,
still, yeah.
Track B doesn't have enough frontage to create additional lots. Track C, it possibly could be subdivided into one additional lot, but the owner, I believe you have a letter in your packet from him saying he doesn't plan to do that.
What about tract A1A? And I guess you couldn't do too much more with lot 12 because it's on that flagpole, but you could maybe put a common easement in there and subdivide that one too, couldn't you? I don't know. I'm just not sure how you get to the limitation on 5 properties or 5 home sites.
Okay. Based on the current standards, lot 12 could not be further subdivided.
Okay.
And lot 11 would need a variance for frontage at least, and well, the minimum lot size in the area is 2.5 acres, so it's doubtful that either of those would ever be further subdivided.
May I follow up?
Certainly.
What about A1? That's a A1A. That's a 14-acre parcel. It looks like it's got a lot of access to Equus Circle there. 500 feet of access.
Well, the existing homestead is located right about where the Woods 25-foot stream are located on the drawing, where it says stream maintenance easement. And because of that, I was saying that it's unlikely that you get more than one lot, and that lot would be located where we have the words private roadway and gas easement.
Thank you.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out that the R9 district allows duplexes, and if you look at the as-built on page 11, you can see tract B is significant. That's all I had.
Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. Through the chair, are you aware of any restrictions for access from tract A1A to Golden View Drive? If that did further subdivide, would that be forced to access Equus Circle, or would you be able to build more driveways to Golden View?
I'm not aware of any restrictions on access to Golden View.
Any other questions? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Chris Hamley. I live at 17701 Golden View Drive. I want to say that I support the petitioner's request for variation under all 3 counts. I am the owner of Tract B, Keno Hills, Edition Number 7. That's the property to the south in the eastern portion of the tract. I am the primary user of the 60-foot wide driveway easement. I constructed that driveway. I'm the responsible party for maintaining that currently and expect that I will continue that maintenance in the event that the driveway easement is approved. I knew Ms. Mullen, Ruth Mullen, and this was the goal of transferring the property to her heirs at the time that she passed. I think that's what the goal of this process is. There was a question about a problem with the intersection of Equus and Golden View Drive. There is several hundred feet of sight distance in both directions. I currently plow the driveway, don't have any problem with sight distance. as it relates to potentially a light. Mullen Park is just down the way. There was no light required at the time that Mullen Park was put in. We being me, the property owner that's at the driveway, we worry that this becomes a place that kids come and start bonfires. I currently have a gate at the bottom of the driveway so that I can keep that from occurring. If this becomes a public roadway, that would not be allowable. I assume I'd have to make sure that that was kept open and free, and then have to be a policeman of the kids that like to drink beer late at night. Fire department has been up the driveway, been able to turn around, had no problem with what's currently there. And I have no further comments except that I encourage you to support the variances as requested.
Any questions for Mr. Hamre? I'm not sure what's... Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11727 Keno Hills? Come forward and state your name for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Mark Schimsheimer. I furnished 2 comments this evening. One as a neighbor in support of this variance, and the other as chair of the South Golden View Rural Road Service Area. As chair of the Rural Road Service Area, my comment was that we're not opposed to this. We really didn't feel we had a position as long as this was going to be a private road, privately maintained, and tax dollars wouldn't be involved here. If this variance is not granted, then that changes the situation a little bit from our perspective. We're on a tight budget there. These are tax dollars, and we're doing the best we can, and we're trying to make this work. And this would be an awful lot of maintenance for what is really effectively a private driveway. So I'm in support of the variance to make sure that this goes through and is maintained and built using private funds, and that we don't have to put our public tax dollars to work on this. So once again, as chair, we're not opposed to this project. As a neighbor, I'm supportive of her efforts, but I think our view might change a little bit if this, in fact, was imposed to be a public right-of-way using public dollars for maintenance.
Any questions for Mr. Schimsheimer? Mr. McLaughlin?
Through the chair, I just wanted to respond to Ms. Taylor's question about prohibiting access from tract A1, tract A-A1. This section of Golden View Drive is a residential collector road, and it's discouraged to have any additional driveways to Golden View Drive. Future access would be gained from Equus Circle if that tract were to be further subdivided.
Any questions for Mr. Schimsheimer? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11727 Keno Hills? Addition number 9. Seeing none, petitioner, your time for rebuttal.
Hi. I'm Janie, and
move the mic down just a.
Oh, you can hear me weeping already. Okay. I'm Janie, and this is the deal. I got to take care of the estate. I got a script to read from, and I can't do it because we want to keep it the way it is, and it's not just financial, guys. It's a good driveway. We want to keep it the way it is. There are certain things I do want to address, though, under the variance request. Point 1, the planning department's response to point 1 is inaccurate. Forcing the development of the 60-foot right-of-way is undesirable to the general public. We'd like to keep it the way it is to keep the traffic flowing properly, and we have the light out there that's already with the mailboxes, but we'll go into that later. The Rabbit Creek Community Council, of course, is in favor of this, and also the 2020 plan wants to keep as small imprint as possible, and that's what we want to do. We just want to keep a small imprint. It's a homestead, and we have the people up there, and they like the idea of a small road, and it's a neighborhood deal where we all help out and work on it. And that's where we're at. And I'd just like to reiterate that we just like to keep it unobtrusive. And by the way, it was 1951 that they started on the homestead. They actually started in 1949. Then they went to 1951 and improved up on the homestead, and then we finally got it in the 60s. So it's been a long, long haul, and this was her wishes, and that's where I'm at. You have any questions?
Mr. Krieger.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Lang or for Ms. Moon, but I asked the same question to Mr. McLaughlin, which is if the variance for this right-of-way was not approved, would that squash, that's a technical term, I guess, would that prevent the development from going through or the plat from being prosecuted?
That's something I left out. What it was, the will gave us the land, but we have no assets, no liquid assets to build a road. And in response, I'm not planning on subdividing the Track A. That's the original homestead. That's all that's left. We have an historical cabin on there that's recognized by the State of Alaska Department of Natural Resources. And I don't plan on subdividing that tract.
But to answer your question, it most likely would not kill the project if the variance was not granted.
You want to elaborate on that? I mean,
well,
your client said that they don't have the resources to build a road, but you're saying it probably would go through. So
it's really a matter of should it be a public way or a private way, and in Title 21. It must be a public way unless you grant this variance this evening. So it could go either way. Before my time runs out, there are some specific things with respect to the department recommendations that I would like to cover. Number 3, which reads, provide an approved fire apparatus turnaround on site for lots 11 and 12. I would suggest that would be best handled as a plat note. The fire department, if you read their specific comments, they require an on-site turnaround when the driveway is longer than 150 feet. With the flag lot 12, it would definitely be needed. With lot 11, it would depend on what was to be constructed there. So nothing is planned to be constructed in the immediate future, so I believe a plat note would be more appropriate for number 3. Number 5 has to do with the dedication for the road. Depending on your decision on the variance, number 5 would not be needed if it stayed as a private road. And number 7, Ms. Taylor brought up the question earlier about the lighting. I had a question myself, so I went up there last night, and in most cases the only street lighting on Golden View Drive is at each street intersection. And in this case, there is a street light directly across the street from this intersection. It primarily lights up a Postal Service cluster mailbox, but it also covers the complete intersection. So you can leave that in there, but because it says resolve, I don't believe it would be a concern to the traffic department. And the remainder of the recommendations are agreeable with the petitioner. In conclusion, we would ask that the board approve the application as submitted with the requested variances and the changes to the staff recommendations as revised. And if you have any additional questions, we'll try to answer them.
Mr. Clark?
Through the chair. I guess our concern, or my concern here is I understand what you're saying about the road, and I understand what the road service area is saying about the road. However, we have to look down the road. Right now, you own all those lots, and the gentleman up there owns Tract B, But at some point in time, somebody else is going to own those lots, and I have a concern about the fire safety adequacy here. Can you alleviate that for me?
Well, less than a mile to the north is Golden View Gate, which has gated cul-de-sacs, which are very similar to this. There are about 6 of them off the main road to the various little cul-de-sacs, and those have a lot more lots than will ever be developed on this street.
Through the chair, follow up though. But aren't those roads to a certain standard in those gated areas? Aren't they?
Yes, and
roads? That's the question and concern I have, to make sure that this road's going to be adequate for the fire department. Not so much the access to it, it's
under item 6, they would be required to construct the road to rural standards.
Well, I understand, but that's making it so that it's not, but that's if we don't approve the variance, isn't it?
No, that would be regardless.
Okay.
Mr. Krieger, did you have anything further?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Through the chair, Madam Chair. The petitioner's point about the fire apparatus turnaround condition 3 is valid, and that could become a plat note. It would be worded prior to the development of lots 11 and 12. It's prior to the development of lots 11 and 12. The need for fire apparatus turnaround on site shall be resolved and approved with an approved fire apparatus turnaround shall be resolved with the fire department. Shall I go through that again?
Yes, please.
Prior to the development of lots 11 and 12, an approved fire apparatus turnaround on site shall be resolved with the fire department.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, could we just say the wording will be resolved with staff?
We have the wording there. Any other questions? Thank you. And now the matter rests with the board. Can I have a positive motion, please? Oh, Ms. Stolpe, do you have a question?
I do have a question. Mr. McLaughlin, you commented about if A-1A were to be subdivided, the issue of driveways going out to Equus Circle and not Golden View. Does that need to be included? Is that just automatically taken care of by what's currently required?
When that tract is further subdivided, then they will be required to have access off of Equus Circle. That's a part of the OSNHP.
So that's already taken care of. And then,
it's already taken care of.
Yeah. And then if I may, Madam Chair, Mr. Lang was speaking about number 7 under Department of Recommendations, the street lighting. What's the staff response to that?
Well, he makes a good point. This was something that staff did not sort of run to ground and investigate fully. Essentially, the Project Management Engineering Department, in their comments, asked for Traffic Department to take another look at this, but they were just trying to cover all their bases.
Sure.
The Traffic Department is likely not to require, any sort of improvement. This was just sort of covering all the bases.
So it'd probably be wiser to leave it in, assuming that that light there is going to take care of it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Okay. Can I have a positive motion in that? case S11727-1, please. Mr. Clark.
In the case of S11727-1, Keno Hills Edition Number 9, I move for approval of the variance from AMC 21.80.010, dedicated streets, and 21.80.330, design standards, lot frontage, and access.
Is there a second? Mr. Krieger. Mr. Clark, will you speak to your motion, please?
Actually, I'm going to go against the department recommendation. I'm going to support my motion. I think that the tenor of the area and the needs for a proper road are going to be adequately addressed, and it seems to be the will of the area.
Mr. Krieger, do you have anything to say?
Madam, yes, I do have a question if it's not out of order for staff. One of the public comments was that it would be expensive to maintain the Equus Circle if it's if it is a dedicated public right-of-way. But it sounds as though the right-of-way is going to be built to rural secondary standards, which doesn't sound to me like it's, I mean, I don't know. Could you discuss what sort of road that would look like and what sort of maintenance one might reasonably expect to have to be done on that?
Through the chair, Mr. Krieger, the road standard improvement will be the same whether it's a dedicated right-of-way or a private roadway. And if it's private, then the expense remains with the adjoining property owner or owners, depending on what happens to the two northern lights when they're developed. So if it's private, the expense remains private. But the development standard for the rural road is the same whether it is dedicated or private.
And what sort of maintenance would be anticipated for that road if it becomes a public road? If it's public road?
Chair, Mr. Krieger, that would depend on what it costs LRSA to do snow plowing, the Golden View Limited Road Service Area, what it costs them to plow this length of road, and I don't have those figures on the cost if it's a public road.
May I continue? Would a new LRSA have to be created, or would this fall within an existing road service area?
Through the chair, Mr. Krieger, the petitioner would have to petition to join the Golden View Limited Rural Road Service Area. So it would not require a new road service area. There is already one existing.
Thank you. You asked me for my comments. I'm not sure how, at this point, I'm still sort of cogitating. I'm trying to figure out. On the one hand, the public interest seems to be better served by making it a public right-of-way, and although there's some question, it appears as though the development would go through yea or nay. On Mr. Clark's point is well taken. There doesn't appear to be much resistance to it in the locality, so I'm kind of on the fence for now.
Any more discussion, then? Try and pry Mr. Krieger off the fence? Ms. Stolpe?
The motion on the floor, I think it was Mr. Clark's, yes vote approves a private Equus Circle.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
Well, the expense of the road is going to be in grading the road and keeping it serviceable, in snow removal, and there will be expenses for that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm supporting the variance. I think that I understand other people's viewpoint that they just as soon not have to pay for what is, in an awful lot of ways, private driveway. However, if that becomes the case, then they're going to need to set up some kind of a homeowners association to take care of that road. And I guess one of the questions I would have is, do we need to put something in here to that effect? Not in the variance, of course, but in the approval of the plat. And I guess that's a question for staff.
Through the chair, Mr. Clark, this issue has come up before in other public hearings. You have users of the road that are not party to this plat. And so if the homeowners association is set up just for this plat, the person currently maintaining the road does not become part of the homeowners association. So that's going to have to be a private agreement. And your point is well taken, because if the two easternmost lots are sold and they're developed, there should be some agreement that they would participate in the maintenance of that road. So homeowners association could be drawn up just for this particular property, but it would not it doesn't include tract B that is not a part of this plat and wouldn't be covered by that homeowners association. Or tract C.
Ms. Taylor?
Thank you. Through the chair, that brings up an interesting question for me. If Equus Circle is not dedicated right-of-way and it becomes tracted out, who does it belong to? Does it stay with the current owner? Or is there a homeowners association planned for this? Is this something that perhaps the petitioner has already addressed and I missed?
Through the chair, it probably would belong to a homeowners association, but there would have to be some, if it becomes private, there has to be some wording on this plat that allows the private tract to provide access to lots 11 and 12, Tract B in Keno Hills Subdivision Edition Number 7, and Tract C Keno Hills Subdivision Edition Number 8. So there would have to be a plat note to ensure access to the future lots and the currently landlocked lots that depend on this driveway. Because if these lots are sold in the future, legal access has to be preserved to tracts B and C by a plat note if it's a private road.
Mr. Clark?
It occurs to me, or it seems to me, that in order for us to approve this variance, that there needs to be some additional work done on the part of the petitioner regarding these issues that have been brought up tonight.
Mr. Krieger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm listening to this discussion. I would be inclined at this point to vote nay on the motion because it's my understanding that currently this land that's identified as potential Equus Circle or is being used as a driveway is private land. But in order to develop these two lots to the Lot 12 and Lot 11, we've got to have a right-of-way into it or access to it. And it sounds like there's complications from, at this point, varying from the requirement to have that be a public dedicated right-of-way that haven't been addressed yet. So I'd be concerned that we'd be doing more harm in the future by approving the variance than we would be to, at this point, to requiring the variance to be in place.
Is there any other discussion? I'm not going to support the motion. I think that it's cleaner if it's a public road. I don't think there'll be much change in the road. The argument of there being more illegal activity on the road has never held a lot of water with me. I don't think that this is the forum to legislate that sort of thing, and I plan not to support it in that case. Since there is opposition, we'll use the mechanical voting system. So a yes vote would approve the variances, and a no vote would deny the variances.
Just one variance we're talking about.
There's two.
Okay, yeah.
They're both having to do with the street, though.
Right, okay.
Okay. There needs to be 5 positive votes for the motion to pass, and there are only 3, so that motion has been denied. And we'll carry on with the second group of variances. Mr. Clark?
In case S-11727-1, Keno Hill Subdivision Number 9, I move for approval of the variance from 21.80.30.G, design standards lot dimensions for the length of flag plot of approximately 368 feet.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Roll seconds. Mr. Clark, will you speak to your motion?
I intend to support the variance. It appears to meet all the standards.
Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, the variance is approved. Moving to the plat.
In the case of S-11727-1, Keno Hills Edition Number 9, I move for approval of the plat for 18 months subject to conditions 1 through 12 with the new and improved language as proposed by staff this evening for number 3.
Moving number 3 to a plat note.
Correct.
And Mr. Roll seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the plat is approved for 18 months. There were postponements for cases S-10625-9 and S-11496-3. They're both Eagle Crossing subdivision and have been postponed until the May meeting. Does the board wish to take a break or forge ahead? Forge ahead? Okay. Sorry, guys. The next case is case S11497-3, Purcell subdivision. Could we have the staff presentation, please?
This is a request to amend a previously approved preliminary plat. You can see the old, the approved preliminary plat on page 63. 62 and 63 show the old, the approved preliminary plat. This is a request to amend that approval. The new drawing can be found on page 5. The preliminary plat was approved in 2006. It proposed to subdivide 3 parcels into 9 lots. Now the petitioner is requesting to amend the preliminary plat so as to subdivide these 3 parcels into 2 lots instead of 9. Also, the petitioner is requesting variance from AMC 2180-330 lot frontage and access and from AMC 2180-200 legal and physical access. Most of the circumstances from the previously approved preliminary plat remain the same. The difference between the previously approved plat and the proposed amended plat is that Lot 1 will not have frontage to a dedicated right-of-way or legal and physical access from a dedicated right-of-way. The petitioner has provided documents showing that Lot 1 has access from a deeded driveway easement. The petitioner is requesting a variance from lot frontage and access and legal and physical access. The standard appears to be met for the variance. There are special circumstances affecting the property which make it impractical and unreasonable for Lot 1 to have frontage and legal access to a publicly dedicated street. The existing house is served by a long driveway from Eagle River Road. The petitioner has provided documents showing physical access through a deeded driveway easement. The petition site is large, 21.2 acres, and oddly shaped. The northeast lot line is the only part of the site that abuts a dedicated street, Bear Ridge Circle. Due to the steep topography that affects the site, it's impractical and unreasonable to require Lot 1 to build a new driveway to Bear Ridge Circle. The variance request is minor and affects only Lot 1. There is a perpetual driveway easement that runs from Eagle River Road to the existing house on Lot 1. Therefore, the department recommends approval for the variance from lot frontage and access and for the variance from legal and physical access for Lot 1. The department also recommends approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 8 on pages 2, 3, and 4 of the packet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Are there any questions of staff? Ms. Taylor?
Thank you. Through the chair, in reading through the department recommendations, there's a condition number 4, resolve with PM&E Traffic and Fire the need to enter into a subdivision agreement to improve the existing driveway to Lot 1. I didn't see any discussion in the comments from PM&E or Fire or Traffic about what standard that would be or why they would request improvements to a driveway.
The discussion was that no improvements to the driveway would be needed, but that they needed to do another field check, and I think that they needed to make it clear to the petitioner that there wouldn't be fire access to the house kept in the state that it is.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. And would the petitioner or the petitioner's representative please come forward? State your name for the record.
Good evening. I'm Sean Purcell. I'm one of the current owner of the property, and I'm able to answer any questions that the board may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Purcell? Ms. Taylor? Oh, okay. No questions? Thank you, Mr. Purcell.
Thank you.
You have 9 minutes and 50 seconds for rebuttal. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in case S11497-3 Purcell subdivision? Please come forward.
James Leonard. I live at 30501 Eagle River Road. I have the property which Mr. Purcell and Mrs. Purcell are requesting for this variance. I do have a question. For one thing, I don't agree with it, but the increase of burden if there's subdivision from that parcel at a later date. If it's broken, what's going to happen to that access? Then the increased burden on my property is increased. In American commercial law, they said the increased burden, the owner of the easement must use it only for the purposes for which it was granted and acquired. You cannot change or increase the burden. So that is. And then they have on number 7, they said that the particular one for Lot 1 is private access. And if you look at in law, the subdivision on Supreme Court, Laughlin versus Eckhart and Demonsky, it is, you have to have private access, public access, excuse me, not private. Now, we have encountered and we're the grantors of adverse possession, and we have kept it posted, and it is private on my piece of property. So that is one point. And snow plowing is an issue, and average calculation there on Mill Road, it is 17 to 18% slope on the driveway up to it. It is not less than 10 degrees, and that is a borough requirement. And let's see. I'd like to talk a little bit more about if there is a subdivision at a later date, what happens to the access? And I'm open for any particular questions you may have.
Are there any questions of Mr. Leonard?
Well, I have the questions to the board. What would happen if if a developer gets it, then what's going to happen to the rest?
The rest remains a tract, and if it were going to be subdivided, they would have to put a road into it.
Okay, so that would not go through my property?
No.
Okay.
Any questions of Mr. Leonard? Mr. Krieger?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Leonard. Let me see if I'm following this. If I ask you a couple questions. You own this lot 1? Is that?
Yes, I've been there for 39 years.
Okay.
Adjacent to lot 1. I do not own lot 1.
Oh. What part of lot 1 are you adjacent to? The north side or the west?
To the west.
To the west?
Yes.
Okay.
West and south.
So you own some property to the west and the south of lot 1, and it's your position that you don't want this amendment to be passed?
No.
Okay, and why don't you want it to be passed?
Increased burden in passage of people.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me, but I understand that they do have access to one. Then they could do that. But the question I have, if that's subdivided, that particular lot 1 is subdivided, what would happen for the access? Would they ask for another variance and go down the road?
May I ask a follow-up question, Madam Chair?
Certainly.
Through the Chair, Mr. Leonard, do you use the same driveway to access your property that the owners of Lot 1 use to access their property?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is private, and the Supreme Court said that it has to be public.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Anyone else have a question for Mr. Leonard? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11497, Purcell subdivision? Anyone at all? Seeing none, Mr. Purcell, you have 9 minutes and 50 seconds.
I would just, maybe I could clarify a little bit about Mr. Leonard's concern. He
we spoke, as neighbors, we spoke over the past reference subdivision of our property, and initially he stated that he believed that the road would not be accessible if we were to subdivide the land. Initially, his land as well as my property belonged to Mr. Harvey Pullen. Mr. Harvey Pullen sold a portion of land to him and then kept open the access of the easement through his property to gain access to our property and where our current house is. Mr. Leonard's, as I understand Mr. Leonard's issue would be he didn't want multiple properties going up on him accessing over the easement of his driveway. I tried to relay that, or belay that fear, and that was not my intent. Either with my prior 9-lot proposal, all lots are going to be accessed off of Bear Ridge, and my current proposal, which would only maintain the current residents coming up the driveway as is now. So we have one driveway, one house, and the proposal is to keep one driveway, one house. So there wouldn't be an increased burden. As far as what may happen in the future, there's no intent at this point in time to subdivide Lot 1 into any further. I don't think it's realistic that Lot 1 could be subdivided further, but either way, that'd have to come before the board again. The board would have to approve such a subdivision. So if we go based on what is and what is happening right now, I don't think, it's not a case of thinking actually, the fact is there would not be any increased burden of traffic accessing easement over Mr. Leonard's driveway.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Just to echo what the petitioner has said, there won't be any increased burden on this on that driveway. Lot 1 cannot be further subdivided. It's at the minimum size that it can be in the R10 district with that slope that it has.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Purcell? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Purcell, and we'll close the public hearing. And the matter rests with the board. If I could have a positive motion on the variance, please. Mr. Clark.
In the matter of S11497-3 Purcell subdivisions, Lot 1 and 2, I move for approval approval of the variance from AMC 21.80.30 lot frontage and access, and from AMC 21.80.20 legal and physical access for Lot 1.
Is there a second? Ms. Taylor, seconds. Mr. Clark, would you speak to your motion, please?
I intend to support the motion. I believe that the standards have been met.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? If not, the motion passes and the variances are approved. Move on to the plat, please. Mr. Clark.
In the case S-11497-3 Purcell subdivision, I move for approval of the plat for 18 months subject to the department recommendations 1 through 8.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Krieger. Mr. Clark, would you speak to your motion?
I intend to support the motion.
Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the plat is approved for 18 months. At this point, we're going to take about a 5-minute break. Thank you.
That's the DOA. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I, I'm sure it is. Maybe I don't want to stop.
Back in session for the Platting Board meeting of Wednesday, April the 1st, 2009. Next case is case S11726-1 Bernard subdivision. And we have the staff's. Is it? Wait a minute.
The Volunteers of America propose to combine Tract K-1 and Block 3, Lot 16A into one lot with the vacation of a 20-foot alleyway and a 10-foot drainage easement. This plat will effectuate the conditional use permit for residential habilitative care facility that was approved in 2007. There are two lots or tracts here. Well, there's one tract and one lot will be combined into one. The petitioner is also seeking this to relocate, to vacate a section and rededicate a section of alleyway and to vacate entirely this 10-foot drainage easement. In regards to the vacation of and rededication of the 20-foot alleyway, the section of the alleyway that comes out to Highland Road, or it goes out to Stewart Drive, would be relocated to Highland Road. The department has no objection to the relocation of the alleyway. In regards to the 10-foot drainage easement, there are issues with property higher up on the hill and with drainage and glaciation in the area due to the steep topography and water runoff. The department does not support the vacation request for the drainage easement. That's also been stated by Project Management Engineering, the Right-of-Way Division, Eagle River Right-of-Way Division, and Watershed Management Services. The department recommends approval of the vacation and relocation of the 20-foot alleyway, and the department recommends denial of the vacation of the 10-foot drainage easement. The department finally recommends approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 8 on pages 7 and 8 of the packet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Are there any questions of staff? Ms. Taylor?
Thank you. Through the chair, I didn't see any comments in the packet from the municipal non-motorized, non-motorized transportation coordinator. Did you have any discussions on this project?
The non-motorized transportation coordinator did not comment on this plat. As far as I remember, I know that I did not speak with her, and I don't remember if there were comments included in here.
Any other questions of staff? If not, we'll open the public hearing. And would the petitioner come forward, please, and state your name for the record?
I'm Gary Kane with Enterprise Engineering, represent Volunteers of America, Inc. Of Alaska. In regards to the department's recommendations, we don't take any exception. I would like one point of clarification here that under the item 4, where the request for to provide a 10-foot wide easement along the north boundary of the subject property, we'd like to see that wording changed to state resolve with GCI. It's already kind of covered under note 1 there, resolve utility easements. And then also in item 6, item 4 is in conflict with item 6 because resolve the location of the utility easements so that they do not conflict with the landscape easements. The landscape requirements under the conditional use were along that property line, the north boundary. So we'd like to have some latitude there to resolve all of these. That's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Kane? Ms. Taylor, did you have a question? Ms. Stolpe.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Keynes, am I saying your name right? Keynes?
Yes.
We have a public comment that we received when we got here tonight. And it is referencing comments that were made at a community council meeting. This letter is from a neighbor, and I can read the pertinent part, but she quotes page 9 of the Planning Staff Analysis Case 2007-100, and it basically says that VOA, Volunteers of America, would not, the way I read it anyway, would not delete that public easement access between Stewart Drive and Highland Road. I think that's the way it reads. And I'd be interested in your comment on that.
Sure. First of all, this has been through 2 different public hearings and conditional use, and so I'm not sure which staff analysis or whatever they were referring to, but if you look at the final findings by the commission, which are listed in the packet here, there's no reference at all to any of that. What we have done to maintain... What's that?
Which pages are you referring to, please, in our packet?
56 through 65. What the attempt is here is the alleyway that was dedicated for recreational purposes. We have relocated that. We've worked with municipal staff as far as the best location. We've provided connectivity. Basically, there are 2 connection points at other points on Stewart Mountain Drive, and this alleyway comes through the middle. If you it's on the south side of track K1, and then comes up into Highland Road. So it provides connectivity all the way through. I don't know what else could be done. It is, if it's left in its current location, it's detrimental to the operations, day-to-day function of a rehabilitative care facility. They use the existing building, and the other property is all the recreational area where they have different events. So VOA really wants to limit the amount of public traffic through the middle of the site and the use.
Madam Chair, if I just may follow up just briefly.
Certainly.
This neighbor states that VOA promised the neighbors at a community council meeting that they would preserve the recreational easement when the lots were combined. That kind of thing really strikes a chord with me, and I don't clearly understand if this easement is removed, how the neighbors are going to get, because there's a couple of letters in here, and the other letter talks about the danger of walking, I think it said on Stewart Drive. I don't exactly understand what you're saying about how the neighbors are going to get through.
Can I present this here to you?
Do we have that in our packet?
It's in, not the full, it is in the packet, but it's cut off. I've just highlighted the connectivity of the trail and how that works. I think it'll help you understand a little better.
Okay, I think we're all going to need to see that.
Okay, no problem. So if looking at the diagram with north up, Stewart Mountain Drive, that yellow highlight, that's the 20-foot recreational area that comes through. That all remains. So when you get to track K1 and lot 16 right in the middle, currently there is not a connection to Highland Road. So what this plat does is it provides that connection to Highland Road rather than to Stewart Mountain. And so it provides a direct route all the way around. And I might point out that as far as walking along Stewart Mountain Drive, if you look at the way the lots are configured, there's only 3 lots that you now have to walk to the current location anyways. So
Are you done, Ms. Stolpe? Mr. Krieger?
Question for petitioner. Are we on to the question?
Are we on to the question part at this point?
You can ask a question, yes.
Okay. Mr. Keene, I put my pen down after you said you didn't have any problems with it, and then you articulated a couple problems, and I didn't get my pen back up.
Oh, sorry.
But before I get, so you don't have any problem with the denial of this 10-foot drainage easement vacation? The volunteers have this application to vacate that easement, and the municipality is recommending that be denied, and you're okay with that, correct?
Well, yeah, the original intent, because if you look on the east side, there's a 20-foot wide drainage easement that went all the way through. It provides connectivity, but in working with staff, we understand from development upstream or uphill from Highland Road that they have some problems, some glaciation. They're not really sure where they might need to put storm drain improvements, so we're okay with that.
Okay, and then what were the suggested revisions that you had to the department's recommendations again, if you would, please?
On item 4, where it already says in item 1, resolve utility easements. I think item 4 is really covered, but we'd rather not have it say, be a stipulation to provide a 10-foot wide T&E easement. If we're going to modify it, we'd say resolve with GCI the need to provide a 10-foot wide T&E, because that's in direct conflict with item 6 in the location that they state.
Okay, I got the proposed text for number 4. Was there another one that you were suggesting?
No, it's just I'm pointing out that 4 and 6 are in conflict with one another.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
Through the chair, your problems with the alley, is that due to vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic?
It's pedestrian. It's a habilitative care facility, which we went to great lengths basically for security purposes or anything else to monitor the daily activities, where they have the kids coming from the building over to some other the recreational purposes that they have as part of the care program on lot 16A. They'd really rather not have public traffic to deal with back and forth across through the use of they're going to have to do something else to monitor for security and everything else for the kids that are in the program.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Keynes? Mr. Roll.
Through the chair, I'm just curious, since a lot of the comments have to do with the potential vacation of this 20-foot alley, would you be amenable to possibly moving that or dedicating a new alleyway possibly on the eastern portion of this proposed lot? Essentially moving it?
I guess that's a possibility. You got to realize right now that the alley dead ends at midpoint and doesn't connect up. I guess in our opinion it doesn't flow as well if you were to have the trail all the way along connected up. Then you're going to end up with a portion where you're going to have a dead end trail that is right at the where it's shown there right now, and in between lot 16A and track K1. And that the municipality, when they worked with the staff, they really didn't want to have a dead end trail there.
Follow up, I guess. So, if I understand that correctly, so where it's located now is a dead end, but if I'm not mistaken, if it was on the eastern side of the tract, it would connect between Stewart Drive and Highland. Is that correct?
It currently is not a dead end. There's a loop if you between track 16A and track K1 comes up and goes through the right along from Stewart Mountain Drive, comes to the south, and then where the highlighted portion is between track L and the remaining portion, it links up. But there is no direct connection up to Highland Road right now. And that's the preferred, basically for connectivity of the trail. Otherwise, you're going to have a little loop, and then you'll have this other one that is dead-ended because there currently is not a connection. Does that make sense?
I think so. Thanks.
Any other question for Mr. Keynes? Seeing you none, you have 8 minutes and 30 seconds for rebuttal. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11726-1 volunteers of America subdivision.
Hi, my name is Phil Nicterline, and my wife Linda and I live across the street across Stewart Mountain Drive from Lot 16A, VOA's Lot 16A. We're on Lot 1A, and we've lived there for almost 30 years, since a time before when VOA first occupied their old facility. And we have enjoyed the use of the 20-foot alley that is between Lot 16A and K1 since we lived there. We own llamas, and we routinely take them on hikes up through that corridor and up to public lands on the mountain. And so we object to vacation of that corridor. In a community council meeting, it was the first Thursday in June of 2007, VOA promised that they would maintain a public use corridor between the two properties. And Elaine Dahlgren was present. She's the CEO of VOA when that promise was made, and also the developers. Winchester was the architect, but they told us in that community council meeting, there was very, very pointedly that easement that we enjoyed the use of that runs north and south between those two properties would remain intact. And then later on, my wife and I noticed in the planning department staff analysis that on page 9 that public use or that public alley would be replaced with a 20-foot public use easement. So we were quite surprised when we saw this proposal to eliminate that access that we've enjoyed the use of. If that weren't there, it's pretty difficult for us to travel across private lands and risk exposure to traffic and that only. So that's our concern.
Are there any questions for Mr. Nicterline? Ms. Stolpe?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No, I have a question for you. Mr. Roll has suggested, and help me with this, because I think you were talking about instead of having public easement where it's currently located is to move it east between 16A and 17A. Is that what you were saying?
I was suggesting, yeah.
That is?
Yes.
And so then I wonder, sir, if you could, how would you feel about that?
I think that would be an acceptable alternative.
Uh-huh.
And then it wouldn't be through the middle of their day-to-day activities.
All right, super. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11726, Volunteers of America subdivision? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Chris Ingmanson. I'm also a resident of Bernard subdivision. I actually live at the end of Elmira Lane and have been there for about 18 years now. I also have made use of this public easement. It's one of the ways that we can actually connect from Stewart Mountain Drive now to Highland Road. You may have heard it from Highland Road to Stonehill, depending on how long you've been there. Our concern, I think, is that we still maintain that access. Highland Road or Stewart Mountain Drive is a very dangerous road to walk, and trying to access the public lands to the, I guess it would be to the south of this area, would be very difficult without an easement of some sort. As Mr. Nichterlein said, I don't think anyone has any objection to an easement being relocated in another area. I know that once the VOA does remove that old building, they'll have that whole Lot 16A would be essentially vacant property. There ought to be plenty of room to be able to locate some kind of a public use easement in that area. Our main concern is just to maintain that access from Stewart Mountain Drive to Highland Road. I was trying to follow what Mr. King said as far as how those other easements went, and I have to be honest, I wasn't really tracking with exactly how he was connecting those through. And it appeared to me that they were talking about there would not be a connection between Stewart Mountain Drive and Highland Road. And then just, I guess, to also reiterate, I would also definitely oppose the any vacation of any kind of a drainage easement in that area. So.
Any questions for Ms. Englandson?
Thank you.
Did you have a question? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Hi, my name is Roy Thomas. I live there in the Bernard subdivision. I actually would take exception to if the easement were just moved to the east boundary of that property, that would cut all of the residents, of which I'm one, that's located to the west, that uses part of that alley to get over to the spot where it runs north-south. And so in order for that to work for us, you'd still have to connect the easement to Stonehill, and we would have to walk down the alley, then up to Stonehill, then down along Stonehill, and then back down this other easement to get down to the neighbors that are down on Elnora. So I guess what I'm saying is that it doesn't really solve the problem from my perspective if you just move the easement over, because then you just dead end the lateral part of that alley.
Any questions for Mr. Thomas? Mr. Krieger.
Mr. Thomas, was it?
That's correct.
Sure. If you would, which of the parcels in Bernard subdivision is your residence on, or are you?
It's 1B. It's lot 1B.
1B. I'm trying to locate that. Does that show up on any of the plats that we have? Are you to the west of tract F1?
Yeah, it's 4 lots west of the VOA.
Okay. Okay, so you currently, if you wanted to get to Highland Road, you'd come down the Stewart Drive or Stewart Mountain Drive or Stonehill Road, whatever it is, and you'd walk to the east.
I walk to the east using the alley that abuts the south boundary of all of those lots, including the VOA lot, and then that alley easement presently turns and goes north and ties into Stewart Mountain Drive.
Right, I'm following you.
Yeah.
So what's the concern there, that you won't have access to Stewart Drive? Because you'd have to...
Well, you'd be dead ending the alley that runs east-west along the back edge of all of those lots.
We should probably have a map in front of us and we could work this through. So you come down that current alley that's to the south of Lot K1, and if you wanted to get to Highland Road, you'd turn right and you'd jog down 130 feet and you'd be on Highland Road. And then if you wanted to go, if this 20-foot alley that's currently existing between Stewart and Highland were vacated, you'd have to go to the right, go down Highland Road a ways, and then if we move the easement to the east, you'd pick up that easement again, then go back up to the north and get on Stewart Drive there. Is Is that, I mean, am I following? Is that are you able to follow this? You are.
Yeah, I think I follow.
Amazing. And your concern is that's not as convenient as the current route that you can take when you come down that alley, that existing alley, and then just to go to the north and cross over on the existing one.
I don't really have an issue with the convenience. The issue I have is that they're looking to vacate a public alleyway that I presently use to access the airstrip and the neighbors along Elmira. All right?
Where's the airstrip? Does that show up?
It's further to the north, and it maybe doesn't show up in the drawing. There's an airstrip and some ponds and so forth down there, and additional public lands down there. What I'm saying is that if the easement were just simply, if the alley was moved, the north-south alley was moved to the eastern boundary of their property, then I would be coming down the east-west portion of that alley, and it would just simply dead end.
Well, no, it's not. The plan is that in lieu of that 20-foot alley between Highland and, between the property and Stewart Drive, they're going to put a new one in that runs to the south, so it doesn't dead end.
Well, if you included that one and an easement along the eastern property boundary that went all the way from Stonehill, which is technically Highland Road, down to Stewart Mountain Drive, right, that would be workable then.
That's, I think, unless I'm missing something, that's the expectation. I mean, there is a 20-foot easement for recreational purposes, a new easement being suggested as a swap between the one that's there now. Instead of it's going to go to the south instead of to the north, but it does abut or run into Highland Road.
Okay, so you're saying that the one that's being proposed to be dedicated would remain, and in addition to that, an additional easement would be put along the eastern property boundary. Is that correct?
No, the
Mr. Tom.
Thank you. Which one did he give this one?
Right, so as you look at your drawing there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the section that they want to vacate ties into the rest of that highlighted alley, of which my lot is on here. It's on this right here, it's labeled as tract I-1.
Yeah.
So I'd come down that alleyway, and then I would need to be able to turn and go up to Highland Road, and then walk Highland Road down to this other potential easement. That would work for me. So you do have that segment that they're proposing to dedicate, and in addition to that, you would have a new easement being dedicated along that eastern property boundary.
That's my understanding of the informal workaround that we're chatting about.
That would be acceptable.
Any other questions for Mr. Thomas? Thank
Would
you.
you like this back?
You can just leave it right there in case we need it again. Anyone else wishing to testify?
I'm so glad you have this here. It's so hard to follow everything without it. My name is Deborah Hall-Jerry. I'm a resident of Bernard Subdivision. I've been there for 23 years. And
spell your last name, please.
Hall-Jerry, Hull of a boat, Hull-Jilly.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, on the vacation of the current drainage assessment, I concur with the department's assessment that drainage should not be vacated due to the current and emerging issues that we've seen with Mr. Stewart's water system uphill and the unexpected water flow and mud that occurred in the summer of 2008. It would be prudent to provide a period of time to have studies not only to assess the topography, the soil, and the hydrology of the drainage system downhill from further up the mountain. The 500-foot mudslide that occurred in 2008 was enough to make us have great concern over that area. Secondly, the vacation of the current public alley and replacement with a public use easement it's been really unclear regarding the placement of the new use easement, and probably this could have been streamlined if everybody had worked collaboratively with the residents in the area rather than having us come in with public notice and public comment and coming head to head over this. The residents of the Bedard subdivision have an extreme interest in maintaining a safe path for pedestrian traffic. As an injury epidemiologist and a resident of the area, I am very familiar with the risk of having pedestrian traffic on Highland, what was Highland, which is now Stewart Mountain Road. We've had numerous problems with excessive speed, particularly since that road became paved over the years. We've had a number of motor vehicle accidents. Thank goodness no pedestrian motor vehicle incidents have occurred, but we have had domestic animals that have been hit by motor vehicles. And this has occurred not only in the winter months with the icy roads, but also in the summer when the road is very dry. And we've had numerous problems with that, documenting those types of incidents. It would be prudent to ensure the public use easement is located so that we can use that appropriately, so that we do not have to be more at risk for being on the Stewart Mountain Road area. As stated by the petitioner, residents on the Stewart Mountain Drive, of which my home is next to Mr. Thomas's, one lot closer to the VOA, and the residents on the street, and also the lower section of Stewart Mountain Drive, which is to the north, by not having that thoroughfare to remove the pedestrian traffic from the Stewart Mountain Drive. Without that alleyway, we would be forced to walk the length of Stewart Mountain Drive, thus giving a heightened risk of having a pedestrian motor vehicle incident. Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Miller? Is that, are you current on your?
Oh, I'm not.
Ms. Stolpe.
Yes, thank you. Is it pronounced Huljuli?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I don't know if you've been, maybe if you look at the map that we have there, and as I understand it, if you look at the highlighted area coming south from Stewart Drive on the west side, and then following it, as I understand it, that's a 20-foot alley, I guess it's called, and you come all the way over and then drop down. Instead of then going north, you would drop south down to a 20-foot alleyway or a passageway or path along Highland Drive, and then north to connect up with Stewart.
Well, depending on which way you go, you would either climb up or drop down. But in effect, what happens is the same issue that Mr. Thomas described, in that what happens is you get forced, rather than taking this pedestrian traffic way and access way in order to access, say, over to the other side of Highland Road, which many of us enjoy, including the VOA residents. We've had a number of them going down, having gardens down there on Mr. and Mrs. Stewart's property. It was really important, and they concurred as to the risk factor of what is now Stewart Mountain Drive. That section is very windy, and as people come down from Back Valley, they're usually picking up a little excessive speed coming downhill, and once they hit the curves, that is when we see the incidents where they have loss of control. So it would be prudent that we be able to have that shortened access so that we can have entry into Elmira Drive, and also the lower areas where, as Mr. Thomas stated, there is an airstrip that is sometimes in use, but also the pond area that is also used and enjoyed by the residents of the subdivision. But we were not the only ones that had use of that, and for many years we had worked collaboratively with VOA, and it's truly unfortunate that that collaboration has diminished. I think it would have been better if we had all worked on this planning together, rather than having it come as a surprise.
Okay, now can I ask you a difficult question?
Sure.
I'm looking, I mean, this is in the spirit of understanding the whole issue and working toward a compromise, because I think that's probably where we're headed.
Yes.
Do you see the value of their argument about crossing that property, as I understand the VOA property, the way it currently is, coming along this alleyway, for example, and then heading north up to Stewart Drive, as a security issue, as a safety issue?
This had never been a problem previously. As I stated, there are many times that we've had subdivision gatherings where we've had persons that have worked at VOA participate. When the Stewarts were much more active, unfortunately, Mrs. Stewart has passed away last June. They were very active in wanting to maintain that close communication and collaboration with VOA. I do not see this as a security issue, but again, there has not been that collaboration for us to understand what they intend on their plans. It's never been a security issue before. I don't see it as a security issue now, but I would invite the persons that are involved with this planning process to come to the residents and work with us to see if we can come to a viable solution. I'm not really sure where they're coming with a security issue other than perhaps the litigation fear that if some person were to cross a parking lot area and inadvertently be struck, those are the same issues that we have on the Stewart Mountain Drive, where one of the VOA counselors did hit and kill my dog. But again, that was due to the blind areas of coming around the curb.
Okay, just one last question, if I may. So far as you know now, nothing has changed regarding the use of this trail that's been used for some time?
Nothing's changed other than that we have a larger facility.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Ms. Holjolly? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Poor Mr. Clark looks like he's got a headache.
Hi, my name is Diane Thomas. I live at 8164 Stewart Mountain Drive. And I'd just like to mention that in our area we don't have any parks, any sidewalks, any bike trails, and this is our only access up to Highland Road to exercise and walk our dogs. I'm a little bit troubled that the VOA would suggest that they have a security issue with the neighbors. The VOA has been there since 1981, and the easement has been there the whole time. It's never posed a security risk before, and I'm surprised that they would suggest that it does now. We're absolutely in favor of continued access, and we appreciate your support and your effort.
Any questions for Ms. Thomas? Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Good evening. My name is Linda Michelin, and I live at 18920 Elmore Lane. And I also oppose the VOA's petition to vacate the 20-foot alley for the recreational purposes. And as we mentioned earlier, you know, I was at the meeting, the community council meeting, where they promised that they wouldn't vacate it. And they also that's also been stated in a staff report. I also find it really interesting that they've cited security issues, because I also have used the easement. I've lived there for 28 years. I've used that easement all year round. There's never been any issue with security whatsoever. And conversely, the residents of the Arts Center have also used our neighborhood. They walk about our neighborhood freely, and we've never had any, complaints about that. So I just, want to go down as opposing the vacation of that easement. And I think that the Arts Center should basically where the VLA should be a good neighbor, step up and preserve their promise to allow us to use that easement.
Any questions for Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger, Madam, one
Question for
one
you,
question.
ma'am. What is your view of this informal workaround that we've talked about, which is to add, and instead of is to add another 20-foot easement between Highland Road and Stewart Drive, but only on the east side of Lot 16A and 17A, as Mr. Roll was suggesting. Is that map still up there? Did you follow that discussion?
I think I follow it, and
okay.
I think that would work for us. I'm not totally convinced if it's going to work for the other neighbors because of that, the way that dead ends.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11726-1, Volunteers of America subdivision? Seeing none, would you care to use your rebuttal? Okay, you have 8 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay. First thing I want to clarify is it's been pointed out several times that there was not a security issue. There's one major change that people before the VLA was all on one lot. It was all on lot 16. They did not have a facility or use of track K1. Okay, so now that the new facility is on track K1 and the requirement is to demolish the existing facility on lot 16A, they still have they have a TP that's up here, a meditation TP and things, so the access before from the existing facility to where the meditation grounds and stuff, that was all on one lot. That will no longer be the case. So there is a big difference in how the facility is used. The other thing I want to point out is there have been several comments about the connectivity to Highland Road. If you look right now, that easement does not connect to Highland Road, okay? It comes up and it stops short of Highland Road, and it just comes through to the back of the other properties. There's one other thing that I'd like to point out is that two of the people that have testified here talking about needing to have access, basically their properties are fronted the whole entire length of the trail. So I'm not quite getting the issue. If you look at what we have here is what we're proposing. All of these other lots, there's only 4 lots from where we're proposing to provide the connectivity. So if we put another easement as is being suggested, you're effectively only, I don't know how many other lots are really impacting. Lots 4, 5, 3A, and 1A, 2A, they're already connected direct to the trail. They don't have to come down and use Stewart Mountain to walk all the way through. So I just want to point those things out. And in regards to the comments that were made that promises, VLA had always said that relocation of the trail would be considered. We have tried to accommodate. We are relocating. That's just really what the issue is, I think, is where does it get relocated to? And after 2 years and plus delay of public hearing, we've had numerous conversations with this. We're just trying to wrap up the conditions that were approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's really all we're trying to do at this point.
Any questions?
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Krieger, are you in line?
No, I'm not.
And Mr. Clark?
Just for clarification, the current alleyway dead ends at the end of the lot, correct?
Yes.
But in reality, people use that to get to Highland Road.
I would doubt that seriously. If you would look,
Okay, I'm getting the conflict here. These people, okay, it's not being used to get to Highland Road?
if they are, they're trespassing.
Okay, well, I'm not denying that it might be trespassing. I'm asking the question, is it in reality being used to get to Highland Road? These people back there are shaking their head yes.
Well, if you look at the area, it's densely populated there with trees.
Right.
There's no indication that it is being used. It's very steep topography, too.
Okay, well, I think there's... I'm just trying to get some clarification. Thank you.
Ms. Stolpe.
Mr. Keynes, over here.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you or other representatives of the Volunteers of America met with the neighbors to discuss this issue recently?
Not recently, no.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think if we look at page 9 of the packet, or your preliminary plat, the large fold-out, there's a 20-foot alleyway for recreational use that runs through the middle of all of these lots, and it connects presently to Stewart Drive. The petitioner is proposing to, instead of take it down to Stewart Drive, up to Highland Road. Creation of a dead-end alleyway is not an option. The petitioner is providing access to Highland Road. I think what he handed out to the board now added something additional to what wasn't included in the application, and that is abutting lot 17A to dedicate another 20-foot alleyway down to Stewart Drive. I guess I just wanted to bring us back to understanding what was sort of what has been offered and by the applicant thus far.
Thank you. Mr. Krieger?
Thank you. Through the chair. Mr. King, I forget whether during your initial presentation you commented on this, but back to Mr. Roll's question again. He was suggesting that a 20-foot easement be provided between Stewart Drive and Highland Road on the eastern boundary of Lot 16A. Did you follow that suggestion?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the Volunteers of America's position on doing that?
I guess the question would be, would they, that's in addition to the other one already that's being proposed, go up to the north?
Yes. You got on your little yellow map here, you've got a jog to the south that gets you,
yes,
the one you brought us.
Right, that's not there now, but that's what we would.
Right.
Yes. Honestly, I don't, I guess we're looking at it from the standpoint that you're just going 3 lots down and you have another one already.
No, you don't have access between Stewart Mountain Road and Highland Road if you vacate the easement that's there now. And this solution is an attempt to create access between Stewart Mountain Road and Highland, unless I've been missing the last half an hour discussion.
You have 2 of them that connect.
I see. So you're saying that, you go further and you get this between lot 19A and on 19A instead of on 16A.
Right, that's correct.
Okay. So you're okay with the one on 19A, and if instead of doing it on 19A, what if you were to do it on 16A?
The one on 19A exists already. So, I mean, the
That helps me understand what your position is. Thank you.
I'm just saying the practicality of it is whether you walk, say if you're on lot 18A, whether you walk a lot and a half this direction to the west or to the east, the net benefit is, I don't know. Let me put it this way: it's not a deal breaker if that's what needs to happen there. I just, numerous trails. Part of the thing that you want is to lessen the number of connection points. For traffic, you want them to use the trail. And what this is going to do is you've got multiple directions. Walking and encourages more walking along the Stewart Mountain. But that's you guys can make that call. Like I said, it's not a deal breaker if they want to add that additional one. That would be VLA's position.
Mr. Clerk.
What occurs to me, we're trying to, not so much the access to trails, we're trying to cut down on the traffic along Stewart Drive, and eliminating that alleyway that separates your two lots makes it so there's 5 or 6 lots, or more than that even, that have to go quite a ways in either direction along Stewart Mountain Drive, which I understand is a busy road, to get to some of these access points. And I guess if I'm hearing this right, the ideal is to get back here above Highland Road, or on the other side, to the south of Highland Road. So if there was another easement down at the eastern boundary of your property, it would resolve the issues for these folks out here and wouldn't tremendously adversely impact your people.
As I said, it's not a deal breaker.
All right.
Any other questions? Ms. Stolpe, are you in line?
I have more question for the other members of the board, and I'm willing to wait.
For discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Before a motion.
Before a motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm thinking that.
Public hearing closed?
Oh.
No?
Can I continue?
Do we need to have the public hearing open at this point, or is this?
No, I'm sorry. That's why I wasn't sure. I'm willing to wait. Yes,
okay.
Until the public hearing is closed, but before a motion.
Okay. So the public hearing is closed. To discuss, we really do need a motion, though, don't we? Is it a question of staff?
No, I want to engage the other board members in a brief discussion here before we put a motion on the floor, because what I'd like to do, if I may say, is see what the sense is about asking the VOA and the neighbors to get together and resolve this issue amongst themselves and come back to us. And I don't recall that we've ever done that, and it just seems to me a logical thing.
Mr. Clark.
Well, perhaps we could put a motion on the floor to postpone this case until our next meeting. Would that be in order in this case?
That's perfectly legitimate. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to postpone this case made by Mr. Clark and seconded by Ms. Stolpe. And Mr. Clark, would you speak to your motion, please?
I believe that I'll support that motion. I think that there's some discussion that can go on here to where a more amicable meeting of the minds can come together, perhaps not, but some open discussion by these two groups might lead to a better solution to be presented before us.
Mr. Krieger.
Through the chair, what sort of renoticing of this hearing is going to be required if we postpone it for a month, and what sorts of costs are going to be incurred for the petitioner?
Through the chair, Mr. Krieger, there is no cost to the petitioner if this is a motion that winds up being approved by the Platting Board. However, this is April 1st, the next meeting is May 6th, so new public hearing notices will have to be mailed. And advertising in the newspaper, and I assume that the public hearing posters are still on site.
And then do we start from scratch again with presentations of staff and another public hearing, or where are we at?
If there's a change to the petition, in the past the board has asked for a brief recap. You might have more members present that would need to hear a presentation. They also will need to listen to the tapes or read the minutes.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark, there's been a request that you amend your motion to make it a date certain. You just said to postpone.
Actually, what I said was to our next meeting.
Okay.
Or at least, forgive me, that's what I thought I said.
Thank you. Ms. Stope, are you in line? Mr. Krieger, are you in line? Mr. Roll?
Sure. I was just going to say that I'm not going to support the motion. I think that we have a solution, a workable solution before us, and that we can act on it tonight and close this issue. A solution that I think that is that works for all parties.
Ms. Taylor?
Thank you. Through the chair, I agree with Mr. Roll. I think that these parties have had 2 years that they've been working on this project. Everybody has come down and made their position very clear, and I think we have a workable solution that will address the public concerns and that the petitioner has indicated he can work with.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Two of the options that may be are to go with Mr. Roll's suggestion of an additional dedication of a 20-foot alleyway exclusive of the 10-foot drainage easement along, lots, the east property boundary. Another option may be to the vacation of the alley section of the alleyway that's proposed in order to provide a in its place a 20-foot wide public access easement that. That's a second option.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to postpone to the next meeting, and there is not everyone's on the same side, so we're going to do the mechanical vote. A yes vote will postpone, and a no vote will have us continuing on. Please vote. Ms. Stope, are you going to vote? Okay, the motion fails, and so we're still back, and we need a positive motion on the vacation. Mr. Roll.
Okay, I'll give this a try. So maybe some friendly amendments might be in order here after this, but I'll give it a shot anyway. So in the case of S11726-1 Bernard Subdivision, I move for the approval of the vacation of a 20-foot alley with the understanding that a note would be added in the approval on the plat for dedicating a new 20-foot easement on the eastern boundary of Lot 1.
Is there a second? Ms. Taylor seconds. Would you speak to your motion, please?
I'm going to support the motion. It doesn't seem to me to be a good idea to have a public use easement through the middle of the property, but I think the public's comments would be addressed by dedicating a new easement on the eastern boundary. So I support the motion.
Are there any other comments?
Yes. I had a
Mr.
question.
Krieger.
Maybe this might end up being a friendly amendment. I don't know. I guess it's a question for Mr. McLaughlin or staff. Is there a difference between a recreational easement and a public use easement that we should be concerned about if we're talking about a note to the plat that creates this 20-foot easement on this?
In this case, the words are important. We have a 20-foot alleyway, and then in parentheses, for recreational use. But it's an alleyway similar to, I don't know, a right-of-way. It is right-of-way.
Well, that's what's being vacated. We're talking about creating a new access down there around that lot 16A, and I'm wondering...
What we should be talking about is swapping alleyway for alleyway, and not alleyway for easements.
Okay. But there isn't an alleyway there presently.
Presently, there is an alleyway that connects to Stewart Drive, and the application is to vacate that section and rededicate it up to Highland.
Got it.
And Mr. Roll's option is to an additional dedication, and the petitioner is okay with that for an additional 20-foot alleyway on the east property boundary.
And so my question is, is staff okay with the language on the proposed plat note that would say make a new 20-foot alley for recreational purposes between Highland Road and Stewart Drive on the east boundary of lot 16A?
I don't think it's going to be a plat note.
I heard it would be a plat note.
I would
Condition of approval.
May I respond?
Or condition of approval, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm messing it up, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Clark.
I'm getting a strong sense from the petitioner that an alleyway is not what they want. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, I just want to correct you can't do that per code. What's on the plat there now is an alley, and it's noted for recreational purposes. An alleyway, the subdivision standard AMC 2180.25 states that the planning authority may require dedication of alley rights of way where it finds that alleys are necessary for service access, off-street loading, or parking. That's not what this is going to provide. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, and my understanding of what's wanted here is not vehicular access. So if we're going to change this to if we're going to move this, they're going to want to change this to a public access easement for recreational purposes and not an alleyway, which would be allowable for vehicular traffic. Am I missing something there?
Mr. McLaughlin.
Madam Chair, am I responding to you? Or to
Mr. McLaughlin was on the list. So
okay.
I thought he wanted to speak.
He asked me to speak.
Okay.
I think it should be a public use easement for recreational purposes. And if I may say something else, they still need to continue to provide the public use easement going south to Highland Road for recreational purposes.
Right.
So the alley did specify for recreational purposes, but I think a public use easement for recreational purposes will provide legal access for the neighbors to cross the property.
Thank you. Mr. Roll?
I believe that answered my question.
Okay. Mr. Krieger?
Well, I would propose a friendly amendment then to clarify Mr. Roll's motion to indicate that this additional easement is a public use easement for recreational purposes on the eastern boundary of lot 16A.
I agree with that amendment.
Okay. All right. We have a motion that has been moved and seconded to approve the vacation of the 20-foot alleyway for recreational purposes. Our intent being that then when we deal with the plat, we will add a 20-foot alleyway, or 20-foot, easement for recreational purposes on the east side of 16A. Is there objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes, and the 20-foot alleyway for recreational purposes is vacated. Now, moving on to the vacation of the drainage easement.
Okay. I move to approve the vacation of a 10-foot drainage easement.
Is there a second? Ms. Stolpe seconds. Mr. Roll, would you speak to your motion?
I do not support the motion. I support staff's comments.
Okay. So, being that there's, we will vote. So a yes vote would approve the vacation of the drainage easement, and a no vote would deny it. Please vote. Okay, that motion does not pass, and the vacation of the 10-foot drainage easement is not approved. It is denied. Moving on to the plat.
I move to approve the plat for 18 months subject to the 8 conditions outlined in the packet, with making a slight change to item 4 to replace provide with resolve the need for, and add a note 9 that says provide a 20-foot wide public use easement for recreational purposes along the eastern boundary of Lot 1 between Stewart Drive and Highland Road.
About 16A.
16A, sorry.
And Ms. Stolpe, you seconded? Would you speak to your motion, Mr. Roll?
Yep. I think all the conditions are straightforward, and I think the addition of note 9 addresses all the public's comments.
Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes, and the plat is approved for 18 months. The last case on the agenda for this evening is case S11669-3, Coronado Park subdivision, formerly Lazy Mountain Town Square, lots 1 through 19 and tract A. Could we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The request before the board is to approve a 4-phase plan that has been submitted, along with a request for a 60-month approval for proposed Coronado Park subdivision. Formerly, it was titled Lazy Mountain Town Square. The Platting Board did approve a preliminary plat for Coronado Park for 18 months on June 4th of 2008. Now, the approved preliminary plat just does subdivide a 10.65-acre parcel into 19 lots and 1 tract. Variances were approved to allow a private road system to serve the development, and that is the 1 tract that is proposed to be created with a preliminary plat. There was also, for a number of the lots along the east property boundary, a variance that was approved for seeking, that provided relief from the minimum 100-foot lot depth. That is required. The preliminary plat was subject to 14 conditions. This property is located on the south side of Coronado Street and east of the Old Glen Highway in Eagle River. It was formerly occupied with the Lazy Mountain Trailer Court, which has since ceased to exist. The petitioner is proposing a phase plan to sequence development starting at the north end of the property, that portion that fronts onto Coronado Road. The development is proposed to occur over 4 phases. With the phase plan, if approved, the preliminary plat approval would be extended from 18 months to 60 months, which equates to a 42-month time extension, so that if the phase plan and a 60-month approval is granted, it would the approval would commence at the original approval date of June 4th, 2008, and would extend to June 4th of 2013. The petitioner has supplied a number of reasons for this request. The most compelling one is the current demand for new housing has decreased, and the ability to obtain financing has basically dried up due to the current economic downturn, which certainly became much more severe subsequent to the original approval of the preliminary plat on June 4th. The applicant has also stated that a secondary access, which is required for this development of this property, would extend to the west to the Oak Glen Highway. This was the only access that ever served the Mountain View Trailer Court when it was actually in existence. Apparently, there is a 30-foot easement that was provided back in the 50s with the original platting for this area. However, the owner of the shopping center has filed a lawsuit regarding use of that easement, and that is anticipated to take some amount of time as well. But generally, the reviewing agencies in reviewing the request for the phase plan and the 60-month approval had no objections. However, both project management and engineering and the right-of-way division does require temporary turnarounds to be constructed at the end of each phase that would automatically be eliminated or vacated when the subsequent phase is developed. And that will continue through the 3 phases until the project is completed. Traffic engineering and transportation planning required a second point of ingress and egress to be provided with the development of phase 2. And fire plan review requests the petitioner to provide the number of proposed dwellings with each phase. So based on the comments from the reviewing agencies, the department did recommend approval of the 4-phase plan, did recommend approval of the preliminary plat for 60 months commencing on June 4th, 2008, extending to June 4th, 2013, and subject to the 5 conditions which address the concerns that were submitted to the department with the reviewing agency comments. And those conditions are on page 5 of the packet. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Are there any questions of staff? Mr. Krieger, are you in line?
Not a question, a late disclosure. I realize as I look through these materials that I made a disclosure on this one back when it came before the board last year. Same thing. I've represented both companies that are affiliated with Ms. Yoshimura and also with, I guess, the people who are suing. And so I don't think I have a conflict, but I wanted to renew my disclosure from last time, to which the board said, go ahead and participate.
Thank you for your disclosure. Could I have a positive motion for Mr. Krieger to participate? Mr. Clark. And a second, Mr. Roll. Mr. Clark, would you speak to your motion?
You still got to vote.
Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, you are directed to participate. Mr. Krieger? Okay. Are there any more questions of staff? Or are there any questions of staff? Okay, then we'll open the public hearing, and if we could hear from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is David Grenier with Triad Engineering, representing the petitioner this evening. As staff has said, the primary reasons for this time extension request and the phasing plan is because of current market conditions and financing situation. The third reason is that there was a lawsuit that was filed regarding one of the conditions on the plat as it relates to secondary access, and that access would be to the Old Glen Highway at Business Park Boulevard. The petitioner's attorney has been working on this case since it's been filed, which was late summer. And actually a settlement agreement has been submitted and it's been being worked on. Now it looks like it's looking favorable at this time. However, we're under no assurance that when that will actually occur. The actual settlement is looking at providing a left turn lane and also providing for actual lane establishment at that particular intersection. And we feel like this is a good solution and resolution of the shopping center's concerns. The reason for the 4 phases, phase 1 would allow development without the secondary access. This has been discussed with staff and also with fire department, traffic, and PM&E. So based on market financing and secondary access issues, we feel that this is a reasonable request. As far as the conditions, they are also reasonable and acceptable, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You have 8 minutes for rebuttal. Are there any questions for Mr. Grenier?
Thank you.
Anyone wishing to testify in case S11669-3, Coronado Park subdivision?
Good evening. My name is Philip Geraci, and I'd like to thank all of you for doing the wonderful job you do for all of the communities in the area. I've lived in this community or in Eagle River for well over 30 years. What we're talking about here is a downtown core area of Eagle River that, by doing some of the things that might be going on right now, could change that core area of the community, change it drastically. Brings a couple things to mind: Old Kenai area, the downtown, the Old Town area, how they saved that area. I can remember back when that shopping center, Great Line Realty, and George's trailer for the North Slope were the only things on that stretch of land there. So we're talking about a core area that a lot of people in the community enjoy. We like the walking amenities of the community. That area, a lot of people do use that for walking in the area. Some of the things that we're talking about are going to change that whole area to a heavy traffic flow area compared to a trailer court that had maybe 30 trailers, and not all of them even had cars. We're talking about a high volume traffic flow area that is going to change that section of the community in a tremendous way. It's going to have lasting effects. The growth for the community is wonderful. We have a couple of subdivisions in the community that have been constructed in the last couple of years that I can't tell you how many times I pick up our local paper and there's derogatory comments about the volume of people from traffic flow, and I'd like you to consider all of those things when you make your vote tonight, whether it be yea or nay. I'd just like you to say that, I'd like to say that I am a owner of approximately 6 lots in the immediate area. It's going to have a tremendous impact on me, so you know where I'm coming from. I'm also involved with some of the legal actions that are going on at this time. Nothing has been resolved yet. So I'd just like to have you really seriously think about the effects this is going to have on the community. And I thank you for the wonderful job again. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
I have a question. I have a question for you, sir. I'm sorry. I'm just late to the switch here. So, you're urging us to vote no on this amendment to the...
I think the longer you're going to drag this whole issue out, it's going to make it a situation where things can change very easily, especially if you understand the amount of legalities that are going on right now and the people that are involved.
So if this amendment weren't approved, you know, the plat remains in effect. It's under the original time frame.
And I do understand that those issues are being looked at right now, whether anything will ever be resolved on that egress.
All right, that's all the questions I had. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Grenier, you have 8 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few brief comments about the last speaker. The property is zoned RO and B3. It does meet the comprehensive plan as far as density goes. And just recently, I believe the gentleman is speaking about the overlay district plan that the downtown core is going through. We met with the Eagle River Chamber of Commerce and their planners that are working on this actual overlay district plan. And the project is in compliance with those ideals that are going forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we feel that the time extension and the phasing plan is appropriate, and we will also be in compliance with those regulations that appear to be coming forward.
Any more questions for Mr. Grenier? Mr. Krieger? Were you left over? Sorry. Okay, thank you very much. That closes the public hearing. Okay. And the matter rests with the board. If I could have a positive motion on the phase plan, please.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Clerk.
Case S-11669-3, I move for approval of the 4-phase plan.
Is there a second? Ms. Taylor seconds. Would you speak to your motion, please?
I'm going to support the motion. I think this fits within the comprehensive plan. I think the phasing plan is a reasonable response to current economic events.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion is approved, and the 4-phase plan is approved. So moving on to the plat. Mr.
Madam
Clark?
Chairman, in the case of S-11669-3, I move for approval of the preliminary plat for 60 months commencing on June 4th, 2008, and extending to June 4th, 2013, subject to the additional conditions of approval 1 through 5.
And Ms. Taylor seconds. Would you speak to your motion, please?
I intend to support the motion.
Is there any objection to the motion?
No.
I'm sorry.
No objection, but I just, I think this, I'm going to support the motion. I think this is a plat that we carefully reviewed about a year ago, and I think it was a well-argued discussed issue back then, and I think that we've made a decision. I don't see any reason to reverse it at this point.
Any other comments? Any objection? Seeing none, the plat is approved for 60 months. And we have come to the end of the agenda. Any persons to be heard? Any reports? Any comments? Motion to adjourn? Mr. Clark? Mr. Roll seconds. Any objection? Seeing none, we're adjourned.